What up? That was an It's Always Sunny reference when they do the little promo for Fight Milk. We're up with the live stream first ever virtual episode of JC Penni Podcast. We're adopting the pandemic special of, doing virtual social distant podcasting, primarily because for the first time ever, we have a guest host virtually who is all the way in Las Vegas. Daryl joining the podcast, the subject of everyone's ire in the league, the most hated player in fantasy in our league this year, taking time out of his busy schedule, saving lives, doing pelvic exams to come on the podcast. So, Daryl, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm glad to be here. I'm sorry I'm on a slight delay. But it kind of feels like you're inviting Chris Kornheiser here as a special guest instead of having Jerry. But still happy to be here.
That's what we do. And there is a little bit of delay. It's due to the software. I apologize to everybody in advance. But if you're in the chat, please, if you have nothing better to do on a Saturday night, I don't know how well my PC is going to be dealing with the fact that I'm on Skype, on an internet browser, streaming both simultaneously. We're going to see how well it goes. But if you're in the chat and can see this and there aren't technical difficulties, please let us know. So let's get right into it. We're going to do the Week 9 recaps, the Week 10 predictions at the end, and in between we're going to do everyone's favorite, the second trimester grades. So maybe some hot takes, hopefully. Going to the Week 9 recap, I very fortunate to get, I think, either my second or third win in a row, undeserved, putting up 92, but thankfully I had my Alex bye, so Ruby, you don't want to come on the podcast? So, yeah, I did not deserve a win here at all. And once again, by the way, really quick, this is my give me 45 seconds of an indulgence here. Once again, every fucking week, one of my players will get injured mid-fucking game and be done for the rest of the game. Matt Stafford goes out, 8.4 points. And this quarterback committee is I've been fucked ever since Dak went out. But
yeah, it's definitely hurting you.
But thankfully, and my team name, Devontae Adams and Derrick Henry, it was Devontae Adams this week, put up 28, did enough to get me where I needed to be.
When I'm looking at Alex's team here, I'm pretty sure Justin Jackson went out on the very first carry. He got absolutely 0 points. That's definitely going to hurt. And then Tyler Lockett's been so hit or miss. He's either going to get you 3 touchdowns and 150 yards, or he gets you, like 3 catches for 30 yards. And only getting 6 points from him, particularly being part of the trade. He's looking for more points from that trade, but doesn't matter how many points you put up. If you get a win, that's all that matters.
He put up 45 points against Arizona. I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
I bet $20 says that was when Alex was playing Jason Smith. So that's hilarious. All right, so. Yeah, and I guess I'm not the only one who got screwed by injuries. Obviously, Justin Jackson did go out on the first play of the game, didn't do anything. It also doesn't help Alex's cause that he left a lot of points. Granted, I left a lot of points on my bench in quarterbacks. Any one of my other quarterbacks would have put up 20. But Alex leaving DJ Chark on his bench is obviously, a bad decision, and Juju especially. I'm not saying start Juju over Tyler Lockett, but I don't know.
It's tough. Juju's been really hit or miss this year, despite having been, and you would expect better production from him, but he just really hasn't been giving it to you. And then, I get the sitting of DJ Chark. I had him last year. He was a startable, kind of flex player for me last year. But Minshew's not playing, so you have no idea what you're going to get out of the Jacksonville offense. So. That's too hard to try and predict that Chark is going to put out 24 points with a backup quarterback.
Hey, At this point, I need every win I can get to be playoff relevant because it's tough sledding right now for a lot of teams who are fighting for playoff positions. It's kind of like, I think Zach's in, Jason, McMillan, and Window are probably good. You're in a pretty good spot, even though you're not great on points. And there's just a lot of teams fighting for the last few playoff spots. So, speaking of teams fighting for playoff spots, this was a matchup of Jerry was, I think, 3-5. McMillan was 4-4. And it was like, if Jerry wins this game, the playoff hunt gets a lot thicker because McMillan's so high in points. It actually kind of bodes, I think, better for everyone fighting for a wild card spot that McMillan gets this win here. What do you think of it? I mean, what do you think of the matchup generally? What were your thoughts?
I mean, when I look at the matchups here, Jerry's been dealing with a lot of injuries. He's had to put in a bunch of running backs that he didn't necessarily know were going to produce for him or not. So, last couple of weeks, he's had to spot start Boston Scott. He's had to spot start Jerick McKinnon. And, I mean, it seems like every time he puts them in, they score. But the one who seems to be kind of letting him down is Zeke. And it's of no fault of his own. It's just the offensive line play is terrible. The quarterback play is terrible. He may be a fantastic running back, but I mean, it hurts you when you got 8-9 people in the box and you're trying to run against that. You do look at McMillan's team, and I mean, it was pretty much, other than Connor, is the only real surprise. But I mean, everybody else produced for him. He got nearly double digits from every other player, and then of course, Patty Mahomes goes off. McLaurin, your jewel of the draft, he goes out and puts up 21 points. I would say both of them have the probability of being able to put up points, but it's just McMillan is just way more consistent, and I mean it showed in this W.
McMillan, and I said it from the jump that he had. I thought he drafted an excellent team. I'm glad I was right about Scary Terry, even though it sucks for the rest of the rest of us. And the thing is, like, he had Christian Kirk drop 20 on his bench. Like, McMillan's team, it really is strong. Deontay Johnson obviously has been somewhat disappointing compared to what we thought maybe he would be, preseason. But even then, he's putting up 10, which on your bench, that's fine. I agree with you. I think both these teams are kind of like have major upside, but obviously, you look, in this matchup, the tight end position was dominated by McMillan, and it was a 6-point swing there. I'm saying, like, going into it, I thought Darren Waller was much better, obviously, than Logan Thomas on paper. And at the flex spot, and Jerry made the decision to start Antonio Brown. I know he was debating, I think, going into it between Chase Claypool and Antonio Brown. Really didn't make a huge difference, like 7-point swing there. But in reality, with Calvin really not being in for this matchup, it really put Jerry at a significant disadvantage that he couldn't make up. And he's in I think he's in a D. Let me actually, I'll just really quick, I'll come back to the matchups in a second. But just looking at the standings, and we'll kind of get to this, I'm sure, during our grading. But right now, Jerry is 4th in points scored. He's in a healthy place for the wild card hunt. And he's, if the season ended today. But the problem is that, there could be there's still a lot of games left. I think we're going into week 10, so 10, 11, 12, 13. There's still 4 games left to play. If McMillan falls into danger, if he has a really bad stretch of games and he falls into that danger territory of, he's now in that bottom 5 teams, he's gonna be the wild card. He's a leader in points scored.
Number one scorer, yeah.
So, and right now, if the season ended today, the wild card spot is 4-5. It's not McMillan's 5-4. It's not out of the realm of possibility that he finds himself in the bottom 5 teams in the table. Just the way these crazy seasons gone.
Yeah, for sure.
So going then to our third matchup of the week, and it's my favorite matchup to talk about. It's Jason Smith's matchup. Going to 1-8. I love it. Oh, hold on. I meant to go to box score. Again, for those watching at home, let this be a lesson to you. You have to change your team name before the season starts. That's what happened. So
it's the curse of the team name, clearly.
No, but it absolutely is. So, oh wait, this is week 10. I'm an idiot.
It's all right. I got it up on my screen.
Okay.
I know what
you go ahead and talk about it, and I'll get it up for the fans at home who are clearly not watching because no one's commented in the chat yet.
I mean, right at the top. You gotta. No one I think could have really predicted Tom Brady putting up 2.36 fantasy points. I mean, the Tampa Bay offense had been completely rolling for the past couple weeks. Tom Brady had been putting up, nearly 20 points every single week. And then you expect a high-scoring game with New Orleans. And sure enough, New Orleans puts up 38 points. But Tampa Bay just could not get anything going. It was just turnover after turnover. I mean, even if I'm looking at his other quarterbacks. Goff was on bye. Even if he had started Lamar Jackson, he still would have. No. I think he may have just barely won if he had actually started Lamar Jackson. But there's your curse.
Yeah, I mean, it's 16 points. It would have been. He would have just barely squeaked out a win just by starting Lamar Jackson, his second round pick.
Over
Tom Brady. And I get it. Again, like you said, it was Tom Brady in what looked to be a shootout of a matchup between him and Drew Brees. I think we were all surprised at how bad the Saints mollywopped the Bucks on prime time, but don't sit your studs is the moral of the story, and that was the difference maker. Melvin Gordon hugely disappointing at 3.2. And here's the thing also, by the way, but for Dalvin Cook, James's season is done. It's completely done.
I mean, he is on. He's averaging what, like 180 yards and 2 touchdowns a game over the last few. I mean, it's just insanity.
Look at his scores over the course of the season: 21, 16, 24, 27, 17. Good numbers. What you expect from Dalvin Cook. But he doesn't play Week 6 against Atlanta. Week 7's the bye, so he has those 2 weeks where he's not playing, and then since then. 47.6 and 38.2, absolutely dominant numbers. Like
that's crazy, man.
And if Dalvin Cook's putting up those numbers, James is gonna win matchups. That's just all there is to it. Because the rest of his team really didn't do anything. Deshaun Watson had a solid day. AJ Brown had a good day. No one else did anything.
Yeah. I mean, even getting 0 from the Seahawks defense.
Yeah. I mean, this was a matchup that he was fighting an uphill battle with Chris Carson, on his bench, not playing. With Chris Godwin, I would have considered starting Godwin maybe. Man, that's a heck of a win for James. And here's the thing that sucks, by the way, one last point before we move on for Jason. Jason was actually, even though he didn't break 100, and he probably should lose game. You probably should lose games if you don't break 100. I know I should have this week. But he was the 6th highest scorer. If he matches up against you, me, Alex, he wins. Or sorry,
but you look at the production he got. He got 14 from a kicker, 12 from a defense.
Yeah.
Jimmy Graham putting up 14.5, and then Curtis Samuel's been kind of like sneaky good in that Carolina offense, putting up 22.3. So he got a lot of production from his low-end players. Unfortunately, the players that he was hoping for, getting high-end production, Cooper, Gordon, Jones, Brady, the highest score of all of those was 10.4.
Oh,
even Evans got 8.4.
So what's crazy about this, by the way, is I have 2 people watching the stream right now, and neither one of them are in the league. I don't know if you remember Pugs from college, but Pugs is watching the stream because we game together, and one of our other buddies who we game together, John, is also watching the stream. So shout out to the 2 guys who aren't in our league but are watching the podcast. Thank you.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Better than our friends. So moving on, we've got 2 more matchups to cover before we get into second trimester grades. Brad versus Zach. Zach moves to 8-1. He's playoff bound, right? Like,
yes. He's essentially locked in for the playoffs. It really comes down to whether or not he can kind of lock in the first round bye here over the next probably 2 weeks, honestly.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know Jerry hates on his team, but his team keeps producing.
Yeah.
Metcalf, absolute stud. Kelsey, stud. Josh Allen, putting up 36. Granted, it was against the Seattle defense. It's terrible, but a lot of quarterbacks are putting up a lot of points against that defense. He survived having to start Jermichael Hasty, only getting 2.3 points there. He got negative from his defense, but it doesn't matter. I mean, he has a lot of production in other places from players that aren't necessarily big players. Just because he had a whole bunch of players on bye, but it doesn't matter. Still gets the W.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Josh Allen has been where is he right now? Josh Allen, he's QB4. Like, I don't think that was anticipated. Like, that was probably his ceiling, was being a top 5 QB in fantasy.
Sure.
So, like, obviously he's hit that pick out of the park. Josh Jacobs has had a good season so far as well. He's a certified RB1. Kelsey was a great pick. Zach has done a lot right. I don't know how. Like, Robert Woods and Kareem Hunt were on bye this week, and he still won by 20. And so I really do think at the end of the day, Zach is going. Like, I don't see a way he isn't a first round bye, and I don't want to play his team in the playoffs. Honestly, I mean, this isn't a hot take, but if the season ended today, my money for a championship would be Zach versus McMillan. I think they're the 2 best teams in the league, and I think they're in their own tier right now. Maybe Windows in that conversation. I think Windows a little less consistent. But I don't want to play either Zach or McMillan come season's end. For Brad, he's had I think he's just average. I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's.
I mean, he has some really good wide receivers. Hopkins, Diggs, Fuller.
Sure.
He has some solid wide receivers. Unfortunately, he's battled a lot of injuries when it comes to running back. Mostert's been out majority of the year. Mixon has missed multiple weeks. Fournette getting cut from the Jags and then essentially being a backup in Tampa Bay. That's been kind of unfortunate. Gurley's been doing, pretty solid, but from his quarterback play, his running back play, he's just been either A, a lot of injuries, or B, just inconsistency. And unfortunately, you play against Zach's team and you're having some inconsistency, you're just not going to get the W.
The crazy part about all this, and we'll move on to the last matchup after this, but the crazy part about this is the way fantasy works, right? Like, if we're talking about, like, points scored, right? Jerry is 4th in points scored. I am, like, almost, like, probably like 80 points below him, and I'm 6th. Brad is 7th, and he's about 100 points below Jerry and about, like, 15 points below me. I'm 5-4. Brad's 4-5. Jerry's 3-6. It's just the way fantasy works.
Yep.
Last matchup of the week, your matchup, and for the first time in a while, didn't come out on top against Window. What was the cause of the problems?
I mean, you look at Windows' team, his studs produced. McCaffrey putting up 32 on his first week back. Tyreek Hill putting up 28.6. And then even Herbert having a solid day with 23. You put that all together, and that's pretty freaking hard to overcome. I had decent production from all my players, but then of course Watson left David Johnson up to just dry, and he got smashed right in the head on his second or third catch of the game. Out with a concussion, and unfortunately we'll kind of talk about this coming up. But he got put on IR today because of it.
Which actually, so the Duke Johnson thing is something I'm sure we're going to talk about, but. I did say don't draft David Johnson. Granted, he was producing, so I guess I was wrong. But, Window, I'll give Window some credit here. Jerry actually kind of nailed this in kind of our post-draft episode. He talked about the 1-2-3 punch of McCaffrey, Kittle, and Hill. And Window lost he lost McCaffrey for a large portion of the season so far. Kittle is on IR, and I was trying to see, I guess earlier, I don't know if he's what the timetable is on when he's coming back. They say he's unlikely to play again until late in the season. They said when he went on IR, it was November 5th. They said it was about 8 weeks. So maybe he comes back for the playoffs. Maybe. I
would say it'd probably be unlikely, but I think Kittle came out the week after he got injured and said he'd be back in 3 weeks. So we'll see. But I wouldn't rely on it. But I know Kittle was a stud, but you look of any of these teams to lose their stud tight end. He's got Noah Fant for his backup. Which I would love to have as a starter, let alone as a backup.
Here my point was just that with that 1-2-3 punch, McCaffrey goes out, and we'll talk about this I guess more during grades. But McCaffrey goes out for most of the season. Kittle's out now for a large chunk, half the season. That should have been the end of Window's chances. And the fact that he gets he bids so much on Mike Davis, and I don't know if it was Jerry or I who gave him shit for, maybe both of us. And Mike Davis,
it was 300 or something.
Mike Davis turns into Christian McCaffrey. Apparently, the Carolina offensive line is just stupid, ridiculous, and Window's still putting up 120, still in the playoff hunt. I give Window a lot of credit. He has a good team this year. He should make the playoffs. So that really brings us to one of my favorite times of year. It's one of the 3 times of the year where we talk about grades. It's so fun to just grade each other's performances. And let's start at the top. 8-1, Zach's football team. Right now, 3rd in total points scored, but putting up still a healthy clip. Where you got him?
I kind of did a couple things and kind of breaking some things down when it kind of came to putting together my grade. So I broke it down into our first trimester being the first 4 games of the season, second trimester being the next 5 games. So in the first trimester he went 4-0. Second he went 4-1. First trimester averaged 128.1 per game. In the second, he averaged 111.4. But when you look at in comparison to the rest of the league, he went from 3rd overall scoring to 4th in overall scoring. So it's not like in comparison to the league, he has changed all that much. It's just with buys, you kind of expect that there's going to be a drop. But I think the biggest thing to kind of look at in his team is I calculated from the draft what percentage of his roster is still active in his team since the draft, and he has 77.8% from the draft is still on his team, which is first overall in comparison to the rest of the league. And when you look at the actual players that he is starting through 10 weeks, 87.6% has come from players he drafted, which again is first. So Jerry can go on and on about how terrible his team is, but when you look at these numbers, I mean, the guy drafted a solid team, and even if he's missing players, he's still using his starters majority of the time, and he's still winning. So putting that all together, I gave him an A+. He's 8-1 and deservedly so.
So I feel like a general manager who is just being introduced for the first time to sabermetrics, because that analysis was beautiful. The data, the effort that went in. I feel like my grade is going to be so reductive because I put nowhere near that amount of effort into it. You are like the teacher who really grades by like analyzing every single word in the term paper, and I just take the general gist. What do I give? Grade by my gut. So, much like a lot of the red-blooded conservative Americans, I go with what my gut tells me. And my gut tells me that Zach's team, like you said, I mean, he hasn't really – he's not in really a different position, I think, than he was at the beginning of the year. He's had a good a healthy point production overall. Like you said, he's, I think, what did I say, third or fourth in point score. But either way, one of the things I like to look at is where are his players relative to the rest of the league. And granted, there's always some inflation here for teams that have or haven't had their bye being a little bit higher. Like Travis Kelce going out on bye this week. He's the number one tight end in fantasy.
Yep.
But with that said, he's also averaging 15.5 a week. So like you look at the point position ranks, you look at the averages for points scored. If you take the averages of his starting lineup, let's say just this week, right? Just the averages that they normally put up. He's on pace for 113 and change. Like, that's a winning point total. If the players you're playing, and minus, by the way, Kelsey's on bye again this week, so minus Kelsey, he's starting Gerald Everett at tight end, who's like a 10 clip less. If your starting lineup is putting up with Kelsey in it, 125 points a game, you're going to win most of your games. You're going to be in the playoffs. Like you said, he drafted a good team. He hasn't been one of these teams who's like with Window, who added Mike Davis, who turned into Christian McCaffrey. He did it through the draft. He's winning his matchups. For me, I didn't give him an A+. My standards are super high. Like, to get an A+, I feel like you got to be averaging like $140, $130 or higher, just dominating every matchup you play.
Grades are relative and who you're comparing to. So when you compare it to the rest of the league,
But I like I said earlier on during the prediction or during the kind of the recap of Week 9, he and McMillan are in the top tier of our league right now. And they're the people I would want to play least if I make the playoffs. So I'm giving him an A. So going from 8-1 down to, I believe now we have the 6-win teams. And that's the other thing about Zach, by the way. He has a 2-game cushion for the first round bye.
Yeah, with 4 games to go.
Locked.
That's what I'm saying. If pretty much his first round bye will most likely be decided over these next 2 weeks.
I would agree. Going to the second team in our standings, and the 6-3 team with a lot more points, Window. Where do you have he's right now second? Like I said, he's second in standings at 6-3. He's averaging second in total points scored per game. Where you got him?
So in the first trimester, his overall record was 3-1. Second trimester, he's 3-2. Points score in that first trimester, he was averaging a ridiculous 137.3 points, which was first overall. However, when you look at the second trimester, he's averaging 110. Now down to fifth overall. The big thing on him is he's made quite a lot of change to his team. In fact, he's made 47 transactions, which is pushing close to double any other team. And he was involved in kind of that blockbuster team or that blockbuster trade. So you look at his overall team, 40% of his team is comprised of players he drafted, and of his starts, it's comprised of 58%. Putting that all together, he's still winning. He's still putting up points. So I gave him an A- for this. Even though you look at his point trend, it seems to be trending down. His record seems to be trending down. I think he, once McCaffrey is kind of back to 100%, which may not be this week, that combination plus Thomas and Hill, I think is just going to be incredibly dangerous in the playoffs.
Makes sense. I mean, one of the things that I was trying to look up really quick, and I don't know if I'll be able to do it. Here we go, budget summary. I was trying to see how much budget he had left because, and actually, I think he has more than I do because I just dropped a bunch. So he's right now like 8th in total budget remaining. I have a little under 200. He has a little over 200. Jerry has 68, and then the rest of the league kind of varies between, I think, somewhere around 500 or like 400, to about 700. I was surprised that he was only 8th. I thought he would have blown through his budget by now because, like you said, he's made 47 rosters. I saw the same exact thing you did, and it's like, wow. Like, he's doubling anybody else in terms of, like, the transactions he's making. But like you said, he's putting up a healthy clip. The other thing I think is interesting about Windows' team is, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, is the fact that he survived losing his first overall pick and his third round pick, who is the first pick in the third round, second overall pick. So his first 2 picks in the draft, I think, were McCaffrey and Kittle, and then he drafted Hill in the third, I'm pretty sure. He's survived that and put up still 100, averaging like 110 per game.
Yep.
That's great. A lot is going to hinge on, can he continue to survive? This week is a rough week for Window. And I think right now he's put up, or James put up 2.6 against him. If James is going to make the playoffs, he has to win this matchup, in my opinion, because he's never going to get a better time than when McCaffrey's out. Granted, Mike Davis is still in, so that can offset. But Tyreek Hill is out. Michael Thomas still. I mean, has he? This is I know the trade was made, fairly recently. Michael Thomas came back last week, put up 7.6. What does he do? I think he's still, like, I know you can't guard Mike, but, like, does he perform? Does he go back to what we all know he can do? I really do think this is a matchup where, and by the way, Justin Herbert playing against the Dolphins defense. Justin Herbert has had a great fantasy season so far. I don't know when he was. I don't even know if he was drafted by Window or if he was a free agent pick.
No, free agent.
So, like, to get a free agent quarterback who's putting up 24 points a game is exactly what you want out of a free agent quarterback. I couldn't do that. I keep trying. But he's playing against the Dolphins defense this week, which has been raising a whole lot of hell for a lot of different quarterbacks. Kyler Murray had a great game against them from a fantasy perspective, but he's also a mobile quarterback. And Herbert's somewhat mobile, but I mean, like, you saw what the Dolphins did, I think, to Garoppolo, and then who was it after that? Now it's eluding me. In any event, I really do think.
I mean, they did well against Cup.
That was Jared Goff. Sorry, Jared Goff.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
White guys playing football. I get it. So overall, I think if James is going to beat Window, this is the week to do it. But as far as Window's grade, I'm with you. A-. I was kind of flirting between that A-, B+ line. I tend to do that a lot, where I kind of sit on the line and say, well, why is this an A and not a B? But for me, it's that he is 6-3. He is putting up the second highest total so far in the league because of how ridiculous he started the season. And he's managed to weather a pretty bad storm from an injury perspective. So I empathize with that as someone who's trying to do the same. So then that leads to the other 6-3 team. And now you get to talk about yourself, or if you'd like, I'm happy to talk about you and then have you demolish me with all your fancy statistics.
Up to you, man. Up to you, man. I can do it either first or second. It doesn't matter to me.
I'll take the lead on this one, and it's hard. It's hard to grade. You are the enigma of the league at the grading because you're the biggest, I think, outlier. You are as far as every team go. You and Nick are, and I don't know how much is you, how much is Nick, but you both are the team that's punching above your weight the hardest. You are 8th in total points scored at 956 points per game. Yet you are
outdoing my kick cover.
Yet you are 6-3, and it is because. And here's the crazy thing: you're not even last in total points against. It's not like you're like not getting scored on. Yeah, you're 8th in total points against, but like I'm the fortunate one in terms of total points against. But somehow you've eked out these wins that I don't know. And granted, you didn't last week, but like before that, you were on a tear of just eking out these close wins. Where, like, you were, like, 8th in scoring on a given week, and you somehow win the game. But at the end of the day, what's infuriating about that is, that's what gets you to – if you're 6-3 right now, there's 4 games left to go, you're in a great position to make the playoffs, and then at that point, it's anybody's game. And as far as, like, again, we've all had to weather different injury storms this year because I think injuries have been more prevalent this year than most seasons, especially with COVID and all that going on. Nick Chubb being out for an extended period of time and finally being reactivated, fuck you, this week against me. You've weathered that storm. I also will say that, like, on some of your picks, Allen Robinson, even though he's questionable this week, has looked like a stud. Travis Fulgham has looked amazing for a waiver wire pickup.
I'm pretty sure I spent $7 and got him, and by far he's been my best pickup this year.
$7. And so even though some of your players like CEH, I don't think is performing where you want him to be. Granted, I will say I think he's still an RB1 right now, but that's because he hasn't had his bye until this week.
Yeah, it's got his bye this week.
But he's not where you want him to be for I think he was your first round pick. But aside from that, your team is really good. Kyler Murray is the number 2 quarterback in fantasy.
Dude, he looks so dangerous when he has the ball in his hand. He freaking looks amazing.
We were talking about Kyler Murray for OBJ. We were talking about it.
We were having discussions. What was it, a week before he tore his ACL?
I should have pushed harder. But
you were so reluctant. I reached back to you, and you were like, "Oh, I'm gonna go with committee." And I was like, "All right."
I was definitely considering
because at that time, OB was what 8th or 9th overall in scoring.
Yeah, he was great.
Recently, after that huge Dallas game.
Yeah. So anyway, with regard to your team, I will say this. I'm gonna give you a B+. The B is I would have graded you a B, but for your record. But record matters, and your team is. Here's the other thing too. Your team, even as you started this week, is, if I'm correct, averaging so far 117 a game, and that's with CEH on the bench, by the way.
Yep.
If you're doing that, it's going to be, again, like I said, it's going to be hard to beat you. If CEH were in this game, actually, it would probably be about the same. But, like, still, like, 117 is usually going to be a winning result. That's why you're, like I said, I think B+ is a perfect place for you. I don't think you're in that, like first round bye territory. I honestly don't. I would still be surprised if you get a first round bye, to be completely candid with you, just because of Zach and Window both being up there and having that edge in total points scored right now that I don't think is surmountable. But I also think you're in a position where the playoff spot is absolutely yours to lose, and I don't think it's going to happen. I think you're going to end up being in the playoffs, and you still could get a first round bye if you win enough games. I mean, you control your own destiny.
Yeah, I mean, luck has gotten me this far. Gonna have to rely on luck to get me to continue getting me in the playoffs, and then at that point, like you said, it's pretty much it's anyone's game, and then just kind of hoping. I mean, as of last week, I was in the first round bye talk, but then of course having a big loss to Window that really hurt my chances. But I was actually a little bit more critical of myself when it came to giving myself a grade. I actually gave myself a B minus. You look at my first trimester. I was 2-2. I was averaging 113 points a game, which was 7th overall. My second trimester, I'm 4-1, which looks fantastic. But you look at my points for, and I'm averaging 100, which is 8. So there's real no improvement in my status of scoring. Of my roster, 50% I have drafted, which is 7th. So I've had a lot of turnover, particularly on my bench, of getting rid of people. But as you kind of talked about, I lost Nick Chubb. I think it was like week 3 or after he had averaged like 22 points for back-to-back weeks. And I was able to kind of weather that. And when you kind of look at my team, I mean, I did rely on David Johnson there for a couple weeks. He was averaging double digits, but it wasn't like, any astounding numbers. Antonio Gibson has been a very usable running back that I've relied upon. And then, as we kind of talked about, getting Fulgham was honestly huge. But I think the one thing that is going to be kind of the linchpin on whether or not I continue this trend is I have to rely on Chubb. Like I need better production. I need higher points. The one thing is the Browns, they're also getting back, I can't remember his name, but they're getting back one of their guards, which is one of the highest rated run blocking guards. So you add that plus Chubb. When Chubb was in there, he was the Browns offense was averaging 202 yards a game, which was number 1 overall. Yeah. When Chubb went out, they also lost that guard. They're averaging about like 96, which is I think like 26th or 27th or something like that. So if they get back to what they're good at and rely on Chubb, I think that's just gonna help my team. Whether or not that actually helps me to a championship will remain to be seen.
The one thing, and I'll get to this during our predictions, but the one thing I hate looking at your roster right now that I just staring me in the face is your matchups this week. I just like the opponent ranks.
They're beautiful.
Yeah,
they're beautiful.
Awful. So that brings us to what I would call the kind of the middle of the pack. Like, this is where a lot of different teams are fighting for a wild card, or fighting for playoff spots or a wild card. One team that I don't think can miss I guess could miss the playoffs, but it would be very difficult for them to do so, is Jason McMillan's team, because he's the top scorer in the league. He's put up 11, 43, 52. And I put him in the same tier as Zach. I said earlier in the podcast. I will tell you my grade for him is the same as Zach's. I gave him an A, even despite his bad record. I just look at his team and I say, holy shit, he's averaging over 120 a week right now, and that's just looking at his roster as it is this week. The guys he's starting this week are averaging 120 a game. That's with Patrick Mahomes on his bench, which would add
on the bench,
almost another 10 points. That's with Julio Jones on his bench.
Yep.
Like, his team is just stupid good. Kamara, Patty Mahomes, James Conner has been, like, I think a little underwhelming. As far as
he was what, a 4th round pick,
right? And I
mean, he fell, and if you look, he's what, 12th overall, running back. I mean, I don't know if I'd necessarily say that's underwhelming. I think he's actually slightly better than his draft position. I think it's fantastic value he got there.
I mean, I was just gonna say, like, I still think he's got much bigger upside than he's showing so far. Terry McLaurin has obviously been what I thought he was going to be. Tyler Boyd has been sneaky good value. I think he was like a 6th round or
Yep.
something. I like a lot of the guys McMillan was targeting were guys I was targeting, and he was 2 picks ahead of me. So he was sniping guys I really liked. And I said it afterwards, I love his team. I don't see a way he misses the playoffs given his point totals, because even if he just falls off the face of the earth, he's probably a wild card team, barring something crazy happening. Like he just really has a terrible 4 weeks. So I gave him an A.
Yeah. So you look at his first trimester. He was 2-2, but he was averaging an absurd 131 points, which was second overall at that time. The second trimester, he's 3-2, but he's averaging 123.1 points a game, which is actually first overall. So in comparison to the rest of the league, he's actually improved with his scoring despite having buys. When you put that all together, his record just points that he's had unlucky matchups that he would likely win if he was playing other people in the league. So, I gave him an A-. I put him in the top tier with both Window and Zach. And at least through our grade so far, I have myself in the second tier.
Okay. Makes sense. So then I think that means next up in the lineup would be yours truly, I'm pretty sure. Let me just make sure. Yep. So somehow I'm 5th, and I know I don't deserve to be there. But I am. Where am I? Hold on. Really quick, just as an aside, I'm 6th in total points scored. So I should, if the season ended today, I would be a playoff team, even if I didn't have the record I do. But I'm the least in total points against. Where do you have my